Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast, A Court of Heaven and Hell. I'm Lauren, aka Heaven.
And I'm Ellie. I'm also known as Hel.
And if you don't already know, we are a book podcast currently focusing on the romantasy series, A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. In this episode, we will be continuing our coverage of A Court of Mist and Fury with chapters 20 through 30. The episode structure, as always, will be first plot summary, second character discussions, third any foreshadowing and world building, and fourth will be our theories and Mass Verse connections. With that being said, at this time, I want to go ahead and give a spoiler warning. This episode will contain spoilers for any books in the ACOTAR series. In order for us to fully dive in, we will need to speak about the other books in this series. So if you have not finished her other works, you will be safe until the theories portion, where I will give you another big spoiler warning. If you have not finished the 5 books currently out in this series, then make sure you save this video and come back to join us when you're done.
We also want to give y'all a content warning. Please see our show notes for content and trigger warnings. We are an explicit podcast and we definitely use adult language and talk about adult themes. Please make sure to check out our other ACOTAR episodes if you haven't yet. And if you're interested in hearing us talk about other Sarah J. Maas books, we have several episodes out, including the newly released House of Flame and Shadow. Make sure to follow us for future episodes where we will be reviewing and theorizing the rest of the ACOTAR series and some other romantasy novels. Finally, please take some time to rate and review us, or if you're watching this video on YouTube, please like and subscribe and make sure to let us know your thoughts in the comments. Now let's get into the plot summary of Mist and Fury. Starting with chapter 20, Rysand and Feyre arrive at the Weaver's cottage to see if she can retrieve the item of his to test her powers. But before Feyre goes in, Rysand leaves her with some flirting and tells her he's not going to go inside with her. Feyre enters and sees a young-looking woman with long black hair singing a song that she recognizes. The cottage is full of junk, and Feyre wonders if Rysand sent her on a fool's errand. But then she feels something tapping her shoulder, and it's the item she's there to retrieve on the shelf. It is a ring set with a stone of deepest blue. As she plucks the ring from the shelf, the weaver stops singing. Chapter 21. Feyre quietly tries to head for the door, but the weaver knows there's someone in her house. Feyre thinks quickly on her feet and sees a chimney that she could possibly fit through to get out. While the weaver is searching for her, she's blind, by the way. She climbs up and the weaver hears her. Feyre is halfway up the chimney when the weaver appears from the bottom. Feyre throws a brick at her and makes her escape as she realizes that she's covered in fat and hair and that the weaver's cottage is literally made out of that. Like, it's made out of boiled fat. Ugh, so fucking gross. Feyre gets up on the roof wondering where the fuck Rysand is, and he's far away sitting in a tree branch waiting for her. Feyre is pissed at Rysand, but he quickly winnows him away back to Velaris with the ring. They winnow in the war room where Amren and Cassian are. Amren snaps her fingers to clean Feyre up. Feyre gives them the lowdown on what happened and asks Cassian to teach her to fight because she doesn't want to have to rely on running all the time. Rysand says the ring was his mother's and she gave it to the weaver to keep safe. All Feyre wants is to take a bath, so Rysand flies them two to her room, and before she gets in the bath, he wants her to practice getting in his mind again. He casually brings up his distaste for Ianthe, and she asks why he hates her so much, and Rysand tells her to go into his mind to see why. Feyre does, and she sees a flashback to 100 years ago when Ianthe was at the Night Court and tries to seduce Rysand by being naked in his room waiting for him. After he says no, she still tries to touch him, and he ends up snapping her hand. Feyre then realizes why Lucien was so uncomfortable around Ianthe. Chapter 22. As the Inner Circle is still waiting word from the Summer Court, they decide it's best to go to the Mortal Lands to try to meet with the 6 queens at the Archeron house. But before they meet the queens, they have to get Nesta and Elaine on their side. Feyre and Mor have a conversation about a little bit of Mor's past that we will touch on later in our character section. Mor tells her that she will arrive when the queens do. Rysand, Azriel, and Cassian fly out to Feyre's family's home. Chapter 23. Rysand glamours the Bat Boys as Feyre knocks on the door to the Archeron house. The housekeeper, Miss Laurent, answers and notices Feyre looks a little bit different. Elaine comes to the door asking what's going on and sobs when she sees Feyre. Nesta comes to the staircase staring at Feyre like she's a ghost. They all go to sit down and have tea, while Nesta tells Feyre that their father is away trading and attending a summit about the threat above the wall. Feyre removes her hood, and Nesta and Elaine are wide-eyed at what they see. Feyre tells them all that has happened. Elaine is unsure of having the Fae come to their home, and Nesta tells Feyre to find somewhere else because Elaine is getting married, and they don't want to come across as Fae sympathizers like the Children of the Blessed. Feyre is like, wait, hold up. Elaine's getting married? Like, when the fuck did that happen? She's married Lord's son, whose father hunts the Fae, and she's even wearing an iron ring. Elaine says if they do not help Feyre, there won't be a wedding, and that they should send the house staff away and keep it a secret. Nesta agrees, and Feyre asks her if she would like to meet her companions. Chapter 24. Once all the house staff leaves, the Bat Boys arrive. Oh my god.
Ooh.
Everyone's meeting. This part is so fun. As they enter the house, Feyre gives credit to Elaine for not fainting and Nesta for not hissing. They all go to sit down and eat together, and Feyre notices, again, that the mortal food fucking sucks. She doesn't really like it. Nesta is like, it's something wrong with our food, and then Nesta and Rysand get into a little bit of a back and forth about it, and Cassian intervenes and tells Nesta that her sister saved their people and to not insult his people. Nesta doesn't react at all, and Cassian is amused. I was like, the second that happened, I'm like, oh, yeah, I see what's going on. Elaine says it's really hard to accept what's going on and says it wasn't just Nesta's neglect alone that is to blame for their childhood years. As Cassian is staring down Nesta, Elaine and Asriel have a conversation about flying. Nesta tells him she will deliver the letter to the mortal queens tomorrow morning. The Bat Boys and Feyre spend the night at the estate. Feyre and Rysand are sharing a bedroom with 2 beds, and he gives her his 2 cents on her sisters. Feyre tells him he has a lot of nerve mocking her sisters when his own friends have a lot of drama too. He says he felt upset and wasn't sure he could get through the dinner knowing what Feyre went through as a child.
In chapter 25, the following morning, Rhys and Feyre are beginning to train some of Feyre's newfound abilities. Too nervous with Rhys watching, she sends him away while she practices, but not before he gets some good old-fashioned flirting in. Hours later, with still no success, Feyre goes to her Mary Poppins bag to grab lunch. In addition to a hot meal, she finds some magical paper and a pen and starts texting Rhys. After some cute back and forth flirting, she lets Rhys know she's onto his flirtations before her distraction costs her in a big way. Without her noticing, she's grabbed from the back by none other than the Adder, threatening to snap her neck if she makes a move. Chapter 26. No one has seen the Adder since he disappeared after Amarantha's death, so what is he doing in the human lands? Feyre barely has time to even register before the High Lord shows up restraining the Adder with his power. After interrogating him about why he was hunting Feyre, Asriel shows up to take him away and send a message to Hybern. Angered by the fact that Rhysand clearly used her as bait, Feyre lashes out at him for getting her newly acquired strength. Rhysand points out that she did forget and that she can do a lot more and begins teasing her while trying to get her to fight him back. He keeps winnowing out of her touch until she becomes fed up and shapeshifts, producing talons and winnowing herself for the first time before tackling him when he lands again. It's chapter 27, and pissed off, Feyre tells him to never use her as bait again. Rhys agrees, and she asks why the King of Hybern even wants her. He tells her he doesn't know, but he's going to find out. Afterwards, Rhys tries to get her to winnow again, but Feyre has had enough. Realizing she is genuinely upset, he apologizes to her twice, but she is too upset to even care. He says he'll take her home after breakfast, getting his own feelings hurt when she responds, that Valaris is not her home. In chapter 28, after eating breakfast and taking Feyre's sisters to mail the letter, they say their goodbyes and head back to Prythian. Once there, Rhys leaves Feyre, only coming back after he's retrieved the information he needed from the Adder. Feyre asks what he learned before thinking that he might try to hide the information from her. But Rhys is forthcoming and even lets her into his mind to see the situation unfurl. She watches as Azriel tortures the Adder, finding out that the King of Hybern sent him, saying she was taken from Tamlin. Interesting. He says that the king might let him keep her if he agrees to work with him, but Rhys tells Az to use him to send a message, having already gathered all the information he needed. Coming out of Rhys's mind, Feyre realizes that Tamlin is under the impression that she was taken, so she tells Rhys she needs to write a letter. Feyre writes to Tamlin telling him that she left of her own free will, she's safe. She thanks him for all that he did, but she's not coming back. Hoping the letter will help smooth things over at the spring court, she asks Rhys what the next moves are. If approved, they will be headed to the summer court in a few days to look for the half of the Book of Breathings, and Az is about to begin his reconnaissance to try to find where the human queens are keeping theirs. And until then, Feyre should really get some rest. She's tired of sleeping, though, and tells Rhys to make good on his promise to show her the city at night. Apparently, the gang's all going, and Amren comes to pay Feyre a visit before they leave. Nawala and Caradwyn quickly make their leave when she comes in, and Amren casually tells Feyre that they still report her whereabouts to Azriel. Feyre is surprised by this, asking if it bothers her, but she thinks it's wise and respects Az for his hesitations even after all these years. Feyre takes this opportunity to return the necklace to Amren, and she seems surprised. She reveals that the necklace has no power and tells Feyre to keep it. Chapter 29. Walking down the streets of Valaris, Feyre takes in the inner circle and the city. It is beautiful and alive, and they all seem so comfortable in this environment. She realizes how normal they are and what they fight for every day, and it makes her realize just how much she's been missing out on these last few months. They all go into a restaurant for dinner, and it's obvious that the inner circle is beloved and well regarded. After leaving and stuffed to the brim, Moore recruits Az and Cass to go dancing with her at Rita's, and Amren is back in the restaurant looking for more blood to take home, leaving Feyre alone with Rhys, who says he'd rather walk home than go dancing. Feyre agrees to join him, and he takes her to his favorite view of the city, which also explains how the Rainbow of Valaris got its name. She asks Rhys about his love life and is surprised to find it has been lacking in all the ways that count. They begin speaking of the past and how Rhys has chosen to rule his court, with Feyre saying it's a shame that no one knows the truth, but he cares more about protecting his people. Continuing their walk, Feyre is about to ask to be flown home when she's stopped in her tracks by the sound of a symphony playing a song she knows well. Realizing it was Rhys who sent her the music under the mountain, she asks him why. He says he saw her breaking and didn't know how else to help. She thanks him for everything he's done for her, then and now, before he flies her home, which she is surprised to find she may actually enjoy. Back at home reading, Feyre is slightly surprised when the texting with Rhys starts back up. Continuing his shameless flirting, Feyre isn't going to shy away from his challenge, so she entertains him. After some steamy back and forth, Rhys's teasing gets to Feyre, and she tells him good night before things can go too far. She has another nightmare that night about the Adder, but is able to sleep through the night without waking. And finally, in chapter 30, she's in the training ring with Cassian, and Feyre is feeling it in her body. She's slowly learning, but she's not nearly as skilled in a fight as she is with a bow and arrow. Azriel returns from his mission quickly due to a shield around the Human Queen's territory and begins sulkily sparring with Rhys. Feyre watches appreciatively, and Cassian brings up the letter she wrote to Tamlin. Angered by this, she snaps at Cass, who apologizes before taking her back into the ring. She's now thinking about how Tamlin would have taken the news and coming to the realization of all the fucked up shit that's been happening. Punching and punching, she hears Rhys and Az stop sparring and sees that she has burned through the pads before she breaks down, stating, "I killed them. It should have been me." Rhysand comes and cocoons Feyre in his wings while telling her she will always feel this way, and he knows because he still feels responsible for the deaths of his sister and mother. He tells her the flames come from the Autumn Court and gets her to try to use some of her other powers as a distraction. She's able to cover the entire training ring in darkness using the gifts she received from him. She does eventually lose it, but he tells her they'll work on it, and she needs to go home and bathe because she smells terrible. She flips him off before leaving with Cassie. Now we're going to talk about our favorite parts, the characters. Starting with Nuala and Caradwyn, I just felt like we should talk about them a little bit at this part because we do finally get some information about them. We find out that they are half wraiths, half fae. So that's why they can like move through walls, and that's why they make such great spies, as we saw in the first book when they are spying on the Adder during that conversation he has under the mountain. They do obey Rhys, and they technically answer to him, but they also answer to Azriel, and it was actually him who trained them, so they answer to him first. And yeah, they make amazing spies because they can just like travel without being seen, and like they're like shadowy darkness, kind of like as is literal shadows. That was cool to finally get some backstory on the two of them.
Next person we're gonna bring up is Cassian. My man. I'm gonna be really annoying about him this entire time. I'm so sorry.
Who cares?
But yes, if you don't know, I'm in love with Cassian. I love him. So Cassian, in these span of chapters, Cassian and Azriel don't have too much of a big part. A lot of their parts are because of Nesta and Elaine. So we're going to talk about Nesta as well in this portion. During these chapters, Cassian meets Nesta, and there's some tension. There's some tension. I'm eating it up. I love some tension. He's trying to size her up, and she's not backing down from that. She just like glares at him like, who are you, bitch? I don't know who the fuck you are.
What are you looking at?
Also, during them trying to size each other up, Rhysand and Feyre notice, and Rhysand makes a comment of Cassian hasn't really had someone like that before, and Feyre was like, oh, who do you think would win between a fight between them? And they both were like Nesta, and I was like, ooh.
Yeah, Cassian is this big, strong, brute strength warrior, but
Yeah.
Nesta she's sharp with her
Nesta's
mind.
like,
She's going to...
yeah, she's like a sneaky little snake that will like...
Yeah.
Yeah, like she'll like...
Cassian is a
Cassian is like the
sunshine, brute character. He's just kind of like, da-da-da. He's not afraid of a fight, but he doesn't have the wherewithal to like really get into it with a Nesta.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah. Nesta's, I don't know, someone who like is gonna encircle her prey, and Cassian is someone who would just like no plan, like straight, what's up? Let's go.
Cassian is Feyre going under the mountain with...
Yes, exactly.
No plan. Just, what am I going to do? I'm going to fight everybody in here.
Yeah. Maybe that's why Cassian and Feyre
are like tight.
Like brother and sister. Also, during these chapters, Cassian does defend Feyre and his Fae people to Nesta and Elaine, because they're both very like, oh my god, there's Fae in our house. We're taught to hate the Fae. I don't know how I feel about the Fae. And Cassian defends his people and like snaps back at Nesta, but she's just like, okay. Oh. During these chapters, Nesta, she is still standoffish. She's really wary of what's going on. She's not easily intimidated.
I think that Nesta in this part is back to her old ways in a little bit. A lot of that growth that she had from the first part it's not all the way gone because she does come around, but it takes Elaine kind of pushing her in the right direction for her to really come around. She is mean to Feyre for no reason when they're all eating dinner and Feyre's just trying to be polite and picking at her food. And she's like, what? Is our food not good enough for you? And it just shows I don't even know if it's insecurity or the not liking the otherness that Feyre is. She's trying to make it seem like Feyre has changed so much when Feyre really is. She's the same person. She still loves her family. She obviously has changed in a lot of ways, and she's not this little quiet, meek, like weird girl who's being pushed around by you two, but she's not doing anything. Like it's almost like Nesta's looking for a fight with her. But Nesta does step up when it matters, and she does agree to help. And I do understand Nesta's point of view, which is I don't want to put the life that we have at risk to help the Fae, who like I don't even trust and am wary of. But I do like that Elaine comes in and shows like we're not doing it for the Fae, we're doing it for Feyre, who literally took care of us when we had nothing and nobody. Let's for once step up and be on her side, and she needs us right now, because the fact of the matter is more than Nesta has to lose, Elaine has to lose. If the dude that she's engaged to finds out that she's involved with the Fae, it's going to be a problem for her. So I get Nesta trying to protect Elaine, but at a certain point, I'm happy that she came around, because I definitely am seeing some of her not better qualities shining through at this point. And Elaine, I forgot about this part. Elaine kind of has some good moments here before she turns into a wet napkin again after she gets thrown in the cauldron. So good on Elaine. I was happy to reread these chapters and be like, okay, Elaine does have a little bit of personality and a little bit of pushback here, and she's cute. And before she goes completely into herself after the trauma of the cauldron. So that was cute.
Yeah.
And speaking of Elaine, if we want to go ahead and just dive into her, she's definitely still this like doe-eyed, sweet, kind-hearted girl. Obviously, she's engaged to a person who's almost exactly opposite of that. Hateful, mistrusting, who hates the Fae for no reason other than the fact that his father hates the Fae. But Nesta does say that he isn't as bad as his father. There is that. At least he's kind to Elaine. Elaine also takes a big step in taking accountability for her actions towards Feyre in these chapters. When Cassian's quick to blame Nesta for what happened to Feyre when she was a child and having to provide for them, Elaine acknowledges that it wasn't just Nesta, that she was a part of the problem too. And I love that for her, because that allows me to be able to be like, okay, she's taking accountability for it at this point. At this point, even Nesta hasn't admitted that she was at fault for that or that she was wrong for that in any way, shape, or form. But Elaine has stepped up and been like, I could have been doing more too. I'm also an older sister. It was also my job to help protect her, and I didn't do that either. That's super cute. And then it's also cute that it's literally Elaine who convinces Nesta to help, just saying that it's not only going to help Feyre, who we owe and should be helping, but it's also going to help other humans who have no idea that this is even happening. We have an opportunity to protect other people too. So that definitely shows a lot of Elaine's character and who she is. And hopefully we get to see even more of that when we get a book about her eventually.
I hope we will learn more about Elaine. Please don't hate me for saying this. She was just there. She doesn't have much of a big role yet. Do you want to see what happens with her seer powers that she gets? I hope she gets a little bit bitchy. I need her to be like a little bit bitchy.
That's interesting. I don't know if I see that in her journey, but I would love it. At the very least, if not bitchy, if she
I just need her
just
to have
learns
like a
to
backbone.
yeah,
A
exactly.
little
Just
bit.
learns how to
Yeah.
stand up for herself. She doesn't necessarily have to be mean about it, but I need her to have some pushback.
I want to see that for her because I feel like she's just a very shy, doesn't really want to speak her mind. And she does speak her mind sometimes, but I just want to see a more not so soft spoken side of her,
Yeah.
maybe. I don't know.
She's
But
giving Aurora, Cinderella.
yeah.
There's nothing wrong with those princesses if they're the ones that you like, but I'm definitely more of give me Mulan, give me Jasmine, give me Ariel. I need somebody who's gonna like speak up for
Yeah.
themselves a little bit, even though Ariel literally gives her voice away. We don't need to get into that. This isn't a Disney podcast. But I'm just saying, I need somebody who's got a little bit of sass, a little bit of pushback. I'm not into the whole like, oh, like, oh, everything's so sweet and spring and flowers and nothing bothers me and I just accept life as it happens. No, but we have seen it a little bit with Lucian. It's there. She's got a little sassy with Lucian a few times, so I think it's in there. We just need to see it brought out a little bit more. I'm so curious about her story because it's like the one story where, in my mind, I'm like, I can't imagine where it's going.
I have no idea.
I have no idea. I have no idea who she's going to be with. I have no idea what her story would even be about. I don't know. So it definitely intrigues me greatly.
I do hope her story isn't literally just about who she picks.
Yeah, I don't think
I
it
want
will
to
be.
see actual storyline about Elaine herself and not who she ends up with. I hope Sarah J. Maas wouldn't do that, but we'll see.
I think there'll be more to it. I think they're going to touch a lot on her seer abilities, and I think that there's going to be a big mission that she has to be involved in based on that. I also think that she might be the reason that we finally get some more information on Feyre, on the Archeron ancestor who's Fae. I feel like I could see her being the introduction to us finding out a lot of things that we have questions to because of the whole seer situation. I could see her book being really fucking good if Sarah puts her foot in it. I know she can. Definitely excited about that. And obviously the tension of will they, won't they? Who will she end up with? I will refrain from saying who my choice is because it is such a hot debate on the internet. I'll be saving that for a time when I feel in a safe place. But but yeah, I have opinions. But honestly, I wouldn't be mad either way. I just, in my mind, I'm like, I have thoughts of where I think it would be best for certain people to end up.
And then to quickly round up the Elaine talk, she's also referenced to be the most beautiful of the three sisters, and I feel like that might matter. And since we're talking about Elaine, we're going to get into Azriel, who is also to be known as the most beautiful of the three Bat Boys. Is there a connection there? Who knows? Not saying anything. I don't want y'all to hate me if I don't pick your boo for Elaine, but he's pretty quiet during these chapters as well. There's not too much going on with him. He does go to the Archeron house, and he does meet Elaine and Nesta. There is a small conversation between Azriel and Elaine, but it's nothing super significant. She does say it's beautiful that he flies, but that's really the only thing that I can add about Azriel in this section.
Who doesn't fly?
So
no, I'm just kidding.
Who?
Foxy boy.
Oh, no, that is true.
Anyways, like I said, no dog in that fight. I'm happy either way. But Az is quiet. That's his personality. That's his thing, is being quiet. So I feel like he will be a little bit harder to touch on throughout the series. But I will say that he does, obviously, while we kind of like see this little hint of something that might be there with Elaine, we definitely get some touching on of Azriel and the Moore situation. Like, it's clear that Azriel is pining after Moore, and that Cassian is somehow in the middle of this triangle, not triangle. We haven't gotten the backstory on that yet. It is interesting that while he definitely, I could see there being something there with Elaine, he's clearly still got a thing for Moore. When she wants to go dancing, he's the first one to be like, I want to go dancing too. But Moore kind of has to bring Cian into the situation. Az is a quiet one. Also, we get a lot of just like him being this, I don't want to say he's the smartest. He just is a little bit mistrusting of the whole Amryn situation. The fact that he still has her followed. Azriel is paying attention. Azriel isn't the spy master for a reason. Like, he's watching everybody. He doesn't trust much. He gets really frustrated with Rhys when Rhys doesn't have the confidence in him that he feels like he deserves. And Rhys does point that out sometimes, but he's really good at following Rhys's rules, but you can just tell like he has some pushback and he would be doing things a little bit differently if he was in charge. So Azriel is just a really interesting character. And it's even brought up, Rhys brings up that Azriel's just different. They can't tell if he's upset about the things that he has to do, how he feels about certain things, because he's like really closed off emotionally and he won't talk to anybody but Moore. As much as I'm excited about Elaine getting a book and her journey and what's going on, I also hope that a big part of her book is Azriel, regardless of who she ends up with, because I need more information about Azriel. Like, give me the good stuff. I have so much, and yet I feel like I barely know the man.
I need to see him cry. It sounds so bad, but I need to see him break down and cry. I know this man has an emotional side. I know he does. Mm-hmm. He is quiet. He's like one of those guys that like probably sits by a tree, writes poetry. So I'm like,
ooh, yeah. He's a freak.
I know. Oh yeah. So I'm like, I need to know more about him. Anyway.
Yeah. I'm here for it. I like honestly think there's a small possibility that Azriel somehow just pulls out and ends up being my favorite by the time this is all said and done. I just, like you said, there's just something about Az. So many questions. It's like, even every time I find out something else about him, I'm like, I want more. Like, I need more.
Oh my God. It's like Sarah J. Maas is giving us a slow burn trope, but it's just with him. And we're just like, can I find out more about him? Because also, no one's ever going to top Cassian for me, but Azriel's my second favorite Bat Boy. Possibly, if his story ends up being amazing, he could become one of my favorite book boyfriends.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
It's there.
See
It's
what
there.
happens.
I never say never. I have a lot of different people that I like, and I like them all for different reasons. So I never say never, but he could pull out. He could pull out in front. I need to know more about this man. If I find out that he writes poetry, not like Tamlin, but in a non-cringe way, he's like wild and he's got this like bad boy side. I like a quiet, dark, mysterious man. That's all I'm saying. So I'm here for it. I need to know more. Give us more, Sarah. Give us more. But anyways, moving on. Again, no pun intended. Give us more. Right? She reveals a little bit of information about her past in this stretch of chapters. She was born the most powerful in her family, and when she first got her period at 17 and her power came into full force, the mountains literally shook. We get a little bit more information on her at this point, what her backstory is, because even though she's known as truth teller and even though we know a little bit about her story, we really haven't gotten that much up until this point. So we're getting little chunks at a time about her. Also with the whole her Cassian and Azriel thing, like we still don't really know what happened there. We just kind of know that there's something going on there.
During this part, when Moore is giving a little bit of reveal about her past, she does tell Farah, like, I'll tell you more about it another day. But she does mention that Cassian had to sacrifice something for her. And he didn't mind doing it because he really views himself as a lone born bastard. That's all we got about it. We know.
Yeah, we all know, but we definitely at this point we're just getting tidbits. She doesn't just lay it all out.
Right.
And even still, I would say there's some questions about what really went down. So moving on to our main protagonist of our story here, we've got Rhys and Feyre. So starting off with Feyre, Feyre is slowly but surely becoming more sure of herself. She's still hesitant and still hard on herself in a lot of ways, but she's slowly like accepting who she's becoming as a person. She's on this journey of self-discovery. She goes to Cassian and tells him that she wants him to train her because she doesn't want to feel weak and unable to defend herself, especially after she gets attacked by the adder. She is quick to anger. She's got a little bit of a temper, which is funny because is that who Feyre is, or did she get some of that off of Tamlin when she was spending all that time in the spring court? But she definitely is to snap at people and like quick to lash out. But I'm also like, this is a person who's hurting, who's going through a lot, who's struggling with their emotional trauma right now. So it does make sense that she's lashing out. Also, she's not the only person in her life who's acted this way. A lot of the people she's been around are also quick to anger, quick to lashing out. So that's interesting to see and point out. And even Rhysand points out at some point that she's got like he's like, temper, you got a temper going on. But she's also in the same way that she's quick to anger and she's quick to let people get under her skin. She's also quick to forgive people. And I do love that about Feyre. She is able to like take a step back and like when people are genuine and they're like reaching out to her, like she's able to forgive people. She forgave Tamlin a lot fucking quicker than I would have.
Also in these chapters, Feyre, as she's coming into these powers and she's realizing how powerful she really is, she's really the only person that kind of sizes up Rhysand, just like how Cassie and Nesta do. She's the one person that actually talks back to him. And it just makes sense of why they're all mates now. I'm just like, okay, it makes sense. I love that for these girls to just be like, fuck off, you suck.
A lot of it though is me being like, how much of this is just because Rhys doesn't let anybody else talk to him like that?
So, well, true, because if anyone talked like that to Rhysand, he would literally snap his fingers and they'd be like fucking smoke. But
he's letting her get away with this because he likes her. So there is a certain, but hey, let me tell you something. That's power in and of itself, ladies. So don't look down at it, whatever. We have a certain power in our femininities. Hey, Feyre's using it. And then, yeah, exactly. But it's also, to be fair, she is Rhys's equal. Like, maybe not right this second. She is, because she's still got so much to learn and so much about her powers that she's got to learn. But there's a reason they're mates. She is Rhys's equal. It just, she's still learning right now. So if they were to go head to head right now, Rhys would obliterate her. But don't get me wrong, she's got more powers than Rhys. Let's just put it like that. There was the whole thing with Ianthe talking about how people would try to steal her because of her power. So she's obviously very powerful in her own right. She just hasn't quite learned the techniques yet. But speaking of Rhysand is definitely amping up the flirting right now. Like everything he's saying to this girl is like flirt city, bro. He's slowly but surely making his intentions known. As I'm rereading this, I'm like, bro, maybe I didn't know they were mates yet, but it's very obvious that Rhysand likes Pharaoh more than just, I like whatever, I have this connection to you. I feel bad for what I did under the mountain. It's very clear that he's into her. And it's funny. They both are watching each other all the time. When they go out to the bar and Feyre's watching all these women flirt with Rhys, and she's like making bets with Asriel about who's going to have the balls to approach him and ask him to go home. And she finally just straight up asked him about his like previous love life and about if him and Amryn are a thing. I forgot about that. That's hilarious to me.
What about that too? I did not remember that he invited Amryn.
Me either. I was like, ooh, Rhys, you're bold. And I just love that his response is she didn't say a word. She just laughed at me until her voice went away. I'm like, yeah, bro, you're getting a little big for your britches. Did you really think Amryn was gonna want anything to do with you?
He needed to be humbled a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. We do get a glimpse of the trauma that Rhys is also dealing with. Another thing that they really are able to like bond over and something that brings them closer together throughout these books is just like, trauma they've both experienced. He's trying to help Feyre in her trauma. So in doing that, he's sharing some of his experiences with her. And we get to see just how bad Under the Mountain was for him. And we know why he did it and all of that, but he's still suffering from his time under the mountain. And he has a lot of trauma as well regarding the death of his sister and his mom. Like he blames himself. And yeah, he's struggling with a lot of that. But yeah. Anyways, I love Rhys. I love them together. Their moments here are super cute. He definitely crosses the line sometimes, but Feyre's quick to call him out about that.
And the only one thing I was going to add about Rhysand is during these chapters, he definitely puts Feyre in bad situations, but he explains it like he's doing it to help her understand her power and understand that she can fight back and she can defend herself.
So moving into foreshadowing and world building, we do get a little bit of world building early on in chapter 20 when we are going into the Weaver's territory, basically. Early on, we find out that in Prythian, there is a large empty territory that divides the north and the south, which is known as the Middle, and at its center is the Illyriad's sacred mountain, Ramiel. It is a neutral territory with no High Lord, and it's known that the Weaver, who's located on the eastern edge of the forest, like of this area, is the head bitch in charge. She runs shit around here. So we get that little tidbit of information and early on in this stretch of chapters.
And then moving on to chapter 21, there is so many fucking wolf references in these fucking books, especially about Feyre and Nesta. I don't know what it means, but I just wanted to put that in there because there was at least 3 times, if not 4, that during just these chapters, both of them are described in a wolf-like way. And then also, we learned that Rhysand snapped Ianthe's hand, which is huge foreshadowing because Feyre literally breaks her hand and she can never use it again because she ends up touching Lucian. But yeah, so there's that. Ianthe fucking sucks. We hate her. Shout out to the Weaver.
Yeah, no, literally. I can't wait to talk about that part. But
oh my god, it's gonna be so fun. Okay,
Akmor has so many good moments.
It does. So many good moments. Moving on, when Moore is giving Feyre a little bit of information about her background, she says this line that I caught for the first time in like my 3rd or 4th reread. I was like, oh, I feel like this is going to be important considering that Rhysand and Feyre have a son now. She says that you can smell when a High Lord's heir is coming into power. This makes me a little bit nervous for Nyx because I'm like, oh fuck, like when he comes into his powers, is there going to be another war almost about him? I'm scared. That made me a little bit nervous. I was like, fuck, I feel like that's going to be foreshadowing about Nyx and when he grows up and becomes freaking the super powerful, most powerful person ever.
I think that it's safe to say that there's already a little bit of nervousness around Nyx because he is the son of the literal two most powerful people in Prithian. So I feel
Yeah.
like that hunt is already there. Ianthe already foreshadowed that with the whole like conversation about how before Feyre even got with Rhysand or even went back to the Night Court or whatever, she was like, they're gonna come to hunt for her if they find out about her having all these powers because they're gonna want to breed her. And they're like, and what if somebody Rhysand steals her because he knows that she is so powerful and he is so powerful. And in the Fae, they're very animalistic. Mates even are based off like, who can create the strongest next human or Fae or whatever. Definitely, I could see some shit going down. And that's why I was saying a couple episodes ago that I would be so excited to really get more of Nyx's story. I don't know if we'll get it in the main series, but like, he's gonna be pretty fucking badass.
We learned that Papa Archeron is a Neva to deal with a threat above the wall. And this is major fucking foreshadowing because you know what happens? He shows up in ACOWAR. I will say, I remember reading that scene so fucking well the first time I ever read ACOWAR. I remember I was laying in bed. It's like during like, the giant war, finally, like everyone's fighting. And then when it was, like these 3 ships started sailing in and it had like Feyre, Nesta, Lane, and it was their dad. I fucking sobbed. I was dying. I was like, shut the fuck up. And that's what he's literally doing right now. He is trying to build his own stronghold to come and help his daughters, which shout out to you, dude. So glad you're doing it, finally. I also want to point out in these chapters that there's another reference to Nessa being called a queen. Feyre says, whether at their dinner table at the Archeron estate, that Nessa sat at the head of the table like a queen ready to take her court. I feel like that's foreshadowing. We've been pointing out ever since we started covering ACOTAR, the amount of times that Nessa gets called a queen, because we feel like it's probably going to matter at some point. That's all I'm going to say about it right now. Just keep that in mind.
Keep that in mind.
Little Easter eggs.
And during this part, we do learn that the Adder was sent by the King of Hybern to take Feyre, saying specifically she was stolen from Tamlin. Okay, this is not foreshadowing I would have guessed the first time I read it, or maybe even the second time if I was really paying attention. But this time, I was like, oh, homeboy is already talking to the King of Hybern at this point. The fact that the Adder was coming specifically stating that she was stolen from Tamlin, and we find out that he's locked down the spring court and nobody can get in or out. The night court can't even fly over the spring court. It's locked down so tight. I was like, homeboy is already dealing with the King of Hybern. And I think that that's why people that defend Tamlin will say, why would he think that the letter was like written from Feyre or whatever? And I'm like, yeah, if he's already fully in his delusion mindset of she was stolen, she was taken, it does make sense that her writing that letter didn't really do much to assuage the situation, because he's gonna think that Rhys made you write this because of the drama that's going down. So it makes sense, especially after he sent the Adder back in pieces. And then touching as well on the fact that we learn from Amren that Azriel straight up doesn't trust her. It's not like a blatant distrust of her, but he still has her followed. He still spies on her. He wants to know where she is and her whereabouts. I don't know. Do you think that this will amount to anything? Because I know we find out a little bit later, and I'm sure we'll talk on it then, but we get a prophecy almost that somebody's going to betray the inner circle. And I know there's a lot of questions on who that is. Like, I'm thinking, can we trust her?
So when I was rereading this part, I caught that too, and I was going to put it in our notes. So I'm really glad you did, because I was like, one second. I never noticed that before. And I was like, wait, interesting. It does make me question some shit though. Cause I'm like, okay, Azriel doesn't trust Amren.
Just like based off the fact that we still don't know what she is exactly. We talked about it a lot in our last episodes. You saw that portion and where our thoughts lie. But it's very interesting that the spy master, that Azriel, the quiet one, the watcher on the wall, if you will, doesn't trust her and doesn't, even after all these years, she's been with them for a long time. And even after all this time, he still has her watch and has her whereabouts reported on. And something is just it tugs at the little back of my brain to go, pay attention to that.
Yeah.
Definitely keep that in mind as we're going forward. And then in chapter 29, we get a lot of world building. We do find out officially at this part that Amren drinks blood. So earlier when we were talking about her not eating regular food, this is where we find out that she does in fact drink blood. And when Feyre asks Rhysand why, he's like, well, I never thought it was polite to ask her. This is where I go, how could she be an angel? I get that that's the whole, like, where my mind is like, where I officially think I land is that she's this Old Testament angel of death or whatever, but what's the blood thing? What's that about? That's where I was like, I wonder in my mind if she just switched up between Akamath and Akawar on deciding what Amren was. Because, like, what is the blood drinking thing? Like I said, I did a lot of research on it and I couldn't find shit about angels drinking blood. So that one still gets to me. But as far as the world building goes, we find out that there was a time when the Night Court was ruled from the human city. An ancient High Lord had a different vision, and rather than allowing the world to see his territory vulnerable in a time of change, he sealed the borders and staged a coup, eliminating the worst of the courtiers and predators, building Valaris, and establishing trade and peace. Eventually, though, darkness was able to creep back in, and it was decided that the Court of Nightmares would be the face shown to the world in order to protect the secret of Valaris. So the Court of Nightmares doesn't even know that Valaris exists. They think that they are the Night Court. They're unaware. And when Rhysand rules over the Court of Nightmares, he becomes a totally different person, basically. It's all of the worst rumors and things that people think about him is how he acts when he's ruling the Court of Nightmares versus how he truly is when he's ruling Valaris, which is he's so well loved and accepted that he can literally just walk down the street and people don't even they have a reverence for him, but nobody's checking for him or afraid of him or anything like that. It's very interesting, but I definitely, when I was rereading this part, was like, I want to know more about this ancient High Lord and who he was and how we got from Mor's family ruling the Night Court to Rhysand's family taking over, because we know that it happens, but we literally know basically nothing about how it happens, when it happens. I don't know. And in this point, it clearly points out that at one point, the Night Court was this evil, Court of Nightmares that basically was what that was portrayed. And then one High Lord who was born into that was like, no, I'm going to change shit up. And then it's his ancestor, his descendants who have all been working so hard to keep Valaris this safe, beautiful haven. But it's also we know that Rhys's dad wasn't necessarily the best guy either. He was a lot better than some people, but he was still not the greatest guy. He was even jealous of Rhys and worried about Rhys because he saw him becoming so powerful. I know that we've gotten most of Feyre and Rhys's stories and these books going forward are not based on them, but I still have so many questions. I feel like we need a book in the past, a prequel.
Yeah.
But I'm also wondering if maybe Rhys's, this is totally in my head and but I'm also what if Rhys's ancestor had something to do with Feyre's ancestor or something? Not they were together, but they worked together, because otherwise that would be incest. I'm not talking about that. Well, even if it was far down the line, I'm not talking about that. I'm saying, what if they worked together? I don't know.
Okay, unhinged theory time. This probably doesn't make any sense because it just popped into my head. But okay, I know we were talking about our theories about the Archeron mom and how she maybe had a lineage of high fae. If she, maybe that's a possibility. And another possibility that she was a seer. So what if she got that power from another ancestor, and that's why Elaine has it, and an old ancestor was able to see all these things come together? And I don't know, it makes no sense, but I just...
It doesn't not make sense, especially if that old ancestor is the Suriel. No, just kidding. But
what if the old ancestor is... I'm trying to think of something crazy.
No,
what if the old ancestor is Tamlin? I'm kidding.
No, God, please no. There might be something there. Maybe they knew each other. I'm not saying they were romantically involved, but maybe they straight up knew each other.
If the seer is a lineage in the Archeron family line, what if whoever that was friends with this ancient High Lord, and they were like, oh, you have to do this for Valaris, and then in the future, our family lines are gonna tie together. I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know.
But I think there might seriously be something to the warrior thing, and then the Valkyrie thing that we learn in Silver Flames, with the fact that not only Reese and them used to fight with the Valkyrie, but the lineage back there. What if the Archeron ancestor had some shit to do with that? And I don't know. I just think
That's a
that
good
there's
point.
a really good connection
Mhm.
between these two families established before. And it's just really interesting that basically this ancient High Lord was like the dreamer that they talk about when they say like the court of dreamers. So that was just like a random thought that went through my head. But I feel like this is going to come
What?
back and this matters. This whole ancient High Lord thing didn't just get thrown in there for no reason. So, speaking of random theories, we are finally to our theories and Masterverse connections portion. I do want to go ahead and give that next spoiler warning. Thank you for staying with us so far. We have enjoyed breaking down Akamath with you, but this is your warning to leave if you have not finished all 3 of Sarah J. Maas's series, including House of Flame and Shadow. We will be touching on events that occur in all 3 series, starting now. All right. All right, guys. So the main theory, connection, whatever, probably to focus on in this stretch of chapters, other than that little unhinged one we just went on, is the Weaver. The Weaver. The Weaver. What is she? Who is she? We know that she's the twin sister of the Bone Carver. We know that she's the younger sister of Koshai.
Mhm.
What else do we know about her? In this stretch of chapters, like rereading it, there's some very interesting stuff going on. She is described very, very similarly to the Vogue, but almost like she's been cursed or something. She has thick black hair, snow white hands. She's got a young body, even though we know she's very, very old. She sounds young. She literally is described as climbing up the chimney like a spider. And we know that the spider references are often included when we're talking about Vogue. She lures creatures in and traps them. She makes fabric from their remains. Like, I don't know if that has anything to do with spider silk, but it's very interesting. And specifically, they point
Mhm.
out that when she bleeds black blood. I'm getting some strong Vogue vibes, but we know she's a death god. So it just even more connections to this whole theory that the death gods, the Vogue, like they're all the same shit, bro.
Okay, this is gonna make my brain hurt. Akatar Wiki says that, quote, "In distant past, in the times before the cauldron and the mother, and before the kingdom of Prythian was created, the bone carver crossed the dimensions of another world. He says he fell into this world of his own free will, along with his twin sister and his older brother. The 3 siblings who are immensely powerful by the world's standards are taken as gods by the ancient Fae."
Right. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, I'm trying to piece this together. I'm over here trying to remember everything from every fucking book, and I'm just like,
Uh,
ah. Okay, they fell from another world, so we know they're from another world
mm,
other than Prythian. Okay, could they be a Asteri? But then if they're a Asteri from our theory, they also be the Throne of Glass gods, or gods from Throne of Glass, technically.
right.
But what if the bone carver and the weaver are like more of the good ones, because they did end up helping at the very end? We don't know shit about Koshai though. Koshai is a little bit questionable. So I'm like, okay, I don't even know. But it is interesting that she is like described in a spider-like way, and she has
Hmm.
black blood. She has the black eyes. It's giving Vogue.
Yeah, but we already know that I don't actually believe that the Vogue and the Asteri are the same things. In my thought process, and what I still believe even after Hofas, is that the Asteri are more akin to the gods from Throne of Glass, and they
Right, right,
might
right, right.
even be something else. But I also feel like the Vogue are something different, and the black blood is what specifically leads me in the spider references, or what specifically leads me to think
Mhm.
Vogue when it comes to the Weaver. But also, okay, a big thing, and I don't know if this means anything, but okay, so I'm positive that they're not from Prythian. They're older than Prythian. They came here just like Amryn, just like many other things, the surreal things that we know literally came from other places, okay? The song that she sings in while Feyre is like looking for this thing is literally based off a real historical song called the Trois Sisters or the Two Sisters. And if you research what that song is about, it's literally that song. Like it's about a sister, and sometimes there's a third sister, but generally it's about two sisters where one of them kills the other one by pushing them into the water and drowning them, and then somebody on the other side finds them and makes an instrument of some sort from their body, basically, from their bones, from their whatever. I just think that with the same thing that I was saying last week about Amryn possibly being from a world that we haven't even talked about yet, it's possible that these, like the Bone Carver and Koschei and the Weaver, also come from, if not that same world, another world that we haven't actually delved into yet. But the fact that that is based off of a real historical song almost leads me to be like, is it the same world that Amryn came from in some way, shape, or form? Or a world like that, where it's more of a world, for lack of better words, but like based off of our world in a way.
For me, the Weaver song reminds me of Celine and Helena when there's two sisters and the Weaver says that one of them pushed them into a different world. That's what happened with them.
She
That's
says
where
that
my mind went
she
to.
pushes them into the water and one of them drowns, not a different world. It could be a reference to another world, but the whole thing is like she pushes them in, and then the sister, she swims for a while and then she drowns, and then when she's pulled out of the water by a man on the other side, he begins to take her apart and makes an instrument out of her. Which, that's weird now that I'm thinking about it.
He makes like a violin.
Yeah, he makes like a violin, and he uses her nose, he uses her hair for the strings, he uses like her different parts of her body to build this instrument. It's based on a real song. Like it's crazy. But
that's a weird fucking song. What
oh,
the hell?
It's fucking creepy, bro. If you listen to her sing it in the graphic audio, it's so fucking creepy.
Oh, I loved it. I loved
So
it in the graphic audio. It was so good.
But it does make me think.
It's definitely interesting that she is described basically as a Vogue. I'm like, could she be a Vogue princess?
Well, because in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, if she comes from another world, this song. But Feyre did say she'd heard the song before, I feel like.
Feyre also says that the humans would be upset to know that song came from the Fae. It could have just been a song that was passed down by the Fae that maybe has something to do with Prithian that we don't know about yet. But it's just with the Weaver and the Bone Carver and Koschei, I'm just trying to wrap my head around it because she's described just like a fucking Vogue, like literally.
But something's wrong with her face.
Yeah, her face is like
she's got the Baba Yellow Legs face.
Yeah, she looks young, but she's not. She has voids for fucking eyes. Okay, and then, but I'm also like, we also don't even know the true form of the Bone Carver. We just see him as other people see him. I'm like, damn, I kind of wish we knew his true form so we could see if maybe he looks like that too. Because then that would be like, oh, okay, then they're probably Vogue because they all three would have to be Vogue for it to make sense. What the fuck does Koschei look like?
Koschei is a sorcerer, and the Weaver is basically the witch from Hansel and Gretel. Like lures people in, and then
literally, actually,
like fucking tears them. And then the Bone Carver was the most magically weak, so he let himself be captured and taken into the prison. What if they're like somehow Vogue witches or something like that? Because Manon also is going to have an incredibly long life, and she bleeds black, and she's part Vogue.
There is no fucking physical description of Koschei.
Yeah, I don't think we've gotten it yet.
This is bothering me. Why do we not know?
Because she's going to reveal it in the next book.
Fuck.
Elaine's going to have something to do with it.
He's such a big question because I don't trust him. There's something about him. And also, we know that he puts a spell on Vat, who's the mortal queen that went against her sisters, and she's like a fucking phoenix.
The spider connection, the black blood, she's Vogue in some way, shape, or form.
We're thinking that probably the Weaver is Fog in some way. We're definitely going to dive more into the three siblings as we go along in the books, and they pop up a lot more. If y'all have any idea of what you think they are, let us know. We'll talk about it more.
Yeah, definitely let us know. Comment your thoughts below. And as always, we hope that you guys did enjoy our discussion on A Court of Mist and Fury. And our next episode, we will be continuing our coverage with chapters 31 through 38. Please feel free to email or DM us anything that you'd like us to touch on relevant to those chapters. Or if you have something that you know is coming up into this book or in the next book, you can also let us know that so we can keep our eye out for it while we're reading. And finally, again, if you're watching us on YouTube, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you're listening on a podcast platform, please take time to review and rate us. It helps us so much, and we do really appreciate it. And either way, please share us with your bookish friends. Give us a follow over on our Instagram and TikTok. It's a lot of fun over there. We have all sorts of different content. I highly encourage you to check it out. And we just want to say that we do love being a part of this community. We can't thank you guys enough. Your support means the world to us. So, as always, we want to leave you guys with a quote. And this is one of my favorites. The quote today is, "There are good days and hard days for me, even now. Don't let the hard days win." All right, guys. Bye.
Bye.